Hi, I'm Rachel. I am co-founder of the Beartoad Dance Company, and in that capacity, I have been offering creative dance and aerial work in schools since 2001. Um, and I'm now doing a PhD at Durham University, and I'm looking for schools to be involved. So I'm looking for schools who are interested in how children's bodies are involved in their learning. So there's lots of assumptions about how we approach learning that we've kind of inherited in schools. So things like sitting at desks, which people are beginning to question and ask, is that the best way for children to learn? And there's lots of research about how physical involvement can help mental performance, and lots of schools are starting to take that on board. So there's things like Forest School active learning, standing desks, and taking movement breaks regularly that schools are finding are very useful for supporting children's learning. But I also want to look at how the learning environment and learning strategies support the body. So as an example, I have an injury at the moment, so I use a standing desk, and I also use one of these, which is an inflatable balance disc, and it helps me to keep my body moving and my muscles working while I'm working. And that's specific to me. Your children's needs in their classroom will be probably very different to mine. And so the whole project that I'm looking at will be looking at kind of bespoke responses to your individual classroom, your individual school, and finding what works for you. So I call this way of looking at learning, embodied learning. So looking at things from the perspective of the body. So yeah, if I refer to embodied learning, that's what I mean. And for the project, I'm looking for 3 schools to be involved, and there's varying different levels of commitment and investment that is needed from those schools. So I'll be needing a pilot school. So in this school, it's maybe somewhere that is just wanting to dip in a toe and go, okay, interested in this, but I'm not sure if it's for us, but we'll give it a go. And the point of the pilot school is to see how the work in the schools actually works, and see if we need to change anything or adjust it before it actually comes to kind of generating some data and trying to answer some of the research questions. So that work will start after February half term this year, 2022. And then in addition to that, I'm going to need 2 participating schools. So these are schools that are maybe a little bit more committed to the idea of embodied learning. They might already be interested, but not have put anything in place yet, and want some kind of support to do that. Or they might already have some strategies in place and want support to extend those in some way. So they might want to include more creativity or tie it up more to the academic curriculum. So there's various different ways that I could maybe support them to do whatever the aims are in their specific school. So if that applies to your school, then carry on watching, and I'll tell you about the work itself. So there'll be different stages to the work in the schools. I'm going to start in all 3 schools with a policy review. So I'll work with the school to choose relevant policy that that's worth kind of looking at in terms of how it supports the body. So I'll be looking for any specific mentions of bodies in the school policy, but also the implicit implications, like how policy impacts on the body in ways that we might not have thought about. And it's a way of looking at policy that is quite unusual, I think. So we don't quite know what we'll find, but it could be interesting to see how policy plays out and affects and impacts the physical body. And perhaps there might be avenues to follow up coming from that work. And then there'll be the work with the children and the teachers. So it'll be bookended by a CPD session. So I'd like to invite the whole staff to a twilight session of about 90 minutes or so at a time that suits you. It needs to be at the beginning of the project and at the end, hence the bookending. So it'll involve a presentation in which I explain a little bit about embodied learning and how what I mean by that, because there's different interpretations. And then we'll have a bit of a movement experience. We'll try some of the exercises and games and things that we'll be using with the children, so that the teachers get to really understand on a physical level what's involved and feel how moving changes the way they feel, the way they think, and get an experience of that. And then we'll end with a bit of a focus group where we'll have some time to talk in small groups and in the bigger group about how it might be relevant for your particular setting, things that you might want to explore going forward. And so there'll be one of these at the beginning and one at the end. And then in between, there'll be the sessions with the children. And there'll be 2 groups in each school, an inquiry group and a mentor group. So I'll start with the mentor group. The group will get 6 sessions, so it can be any class in the school. They'll get 6 sessions over a period of at least 6 weeks, and they'll be planned and delivered with the class teacher. So the point of this is to mentor the class teacher to include movement more confidently in their teaching approach. So we'll work together to plan the session, to deliver the session, and there'll be some time to reflect and evaluate the session afterwards, and then explore some ideas for how movement might be integrated into the class teaching in between the sessions. And it's really about supporting you and responding to your context, your class, your limitations in terms of what you feel confident about delivering, or also your limitations in terms of the physical building or the timetabling. So it really will be about looking at what works for you in your context. And then the second group will need to be with one of the older classes in the school. So yeah, but it depends on whether you're a primary or a first school, but one of the older classes, so that they're a little bit more able to kind of conceptualize and reflect. And the point of these is for me to start to generate and gather some data. And I want to work with the children to find out more about their physical experiences of school and how they feel about that. And I'll be asking things like, when do they feel most alert? When do they feel it's difficult to focus? When do they get excited? What lessons, what times of day, what spaces in the school make them feel in different ways in their body? And what then we might be able to work out is how using the spaces and the ebbs and flows of their energy, how we might be able to support learning better and shift things to appropriate times or whatever. Every teacher knows that Friday afternoon is a tricky time to be teaching. So that's a clear example, but I'm hoping that we might be able to unpick it a little bit more and find out more about the nuance of that through understanding more about children's physical experience. So the last thing, I'm checking my notes, the last thing is that teachers from both groups will need to come together with me in a meeting once a week, so that we can kind of reflect together. So I'm imagining half an hour on a lunchtime. Obviously it would need to be the day that I'm in school, but the point of this will be to kind of reflect together, compare how it's been in the 2 different classes, and support one another to try and find ways that we might implement a little bit more movement in the school day. So a little bit of reflection immediately after the session, and then again a bit of reflection together at lunchtime to kind of help plan for the next time. So I think that's everything. Oh, except there's also a bit of an incentive to be involved. So I mentioned I am part of the Berthaud Dance Company, and one of the things we do is we offer aerial days in school where we bring an aerial rig into the school in an appropriate space. So it might be in the school hall, or it might be outdoors if it's during the summer, and the children then get to hang upside down, and the teachers sometimes if they want to, and we do some movement workshops with some circus props and maybe a bit of a dance and move together, and we can offer a small scale one of those for free in each of the schools, each of the participating schools, and potentially that you could have a bigger day if you're willing to put some money into that as well. So that's a little bit of an incentive to be involved in the project. And just in terms of timings, the pilot schools would need to start the sessions after February half term, and the participating schools would need to be in the summer term 2022. So I think that's everything. If you have any more questions, do get in touch. I think you'll have my email, or I'll make sure it's on this video. Thanks very much, and I hope to hear from you soon. Thank you.